Hey guys, welcome to Accountants Lounge. I'm Ashley Ford. This is Dawn Patton. We're your hosts, and we're just two friends on a mission to share the real behind virtual accounting firms. Today, we're going to be chatting on where to find good hires. We've chatted about how important it is to hire and what that can look like for your business. But today, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty on where we actually find the amazing people that we've brought onto our team. We have some different methods that have worked for us, and we want to share them with you. So, Dawn, walk me through whenever you're going through the hiring process and you decide you need to bring someone onto your team, where do you start? Where's the first place that you go?
Yeah, absolutely. First place I go is my inbox, actually. I have this little folder in my inbox called hiring, and that's where we save notes from like past hires, people that we've been interested in, why I was interested in, 'em, what didn't work out before hiring them, or people who have emailed us interest in wanting to work with us. Anytime someone like sends us a DM or a friend of one of our employees reaches out, or a friend of mine reaches out saying, "Hey, tell me next time you're hiring," I always tell them, send me an email with your resume and details of what you're looking for. Like what kind of hours, what kind of compensation, what kind of tasks, what kind of job environment. Send it to me in an email. And then I pop it in that magical folder. So that's my very first place is my inbox.
Yeah, I think it's easy when you're working throughout the year and you get those little notes. You don't want to let those people slide. They might be a really great fit for your business, but maybe when they're looking or when they reach out is not the perfect time for you and your business. You're not
Yeah.
quite ready. So having that place to kind of go and find those people is the best. And you already know that they're interested in working with you.
Exactly. Yeah, one of my friends put it, she really helped me change my perspective on it because sometimes someone would approach me and be like, I love them. I need more clients so that I can hire them right away. And just feeling that need to like do it right then and there when that good person comes. But that feeling actually just comes from you're not thinking like big picture growth minded. You're thinking
Yeah.
right there in that instant. And not everything is instantaneous, right? I mean, we live in an instantaneous world, so sometimes we get confused, but no, not everything is instantaneous. And one of my friends really helped me change my perspective because she's like, Dawn, your business is growing. You've always been in a growth phase. You need to remember that you're always hiring. And I was like, but I'm not always hiring. That's the problem. She's like, no, you are always hiring though. You're not always hiring right then in that moment, but within 3 months, do you think you'll hire again? And I'm like, yeah, within 3 months. And she's like, exactly. That's always hiring. So keep this, essentially, it's like a file cabinet of resumes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point you made. I think let's dive into this on another episode. But when it comes to hiring, we don't want to make impulse decisions on any
Mhm.
level. So being able to like have a space to put those people so that you know you can come back to them when you're ready and when your business is ready, I think helps you avoid wanting to make an impulse decision to jump into something before you might be ready.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Never hire out of desperation or that impulsivity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
I
that
say that
works.
right?
Okay, so you go to that folder, say you vet those people out, either they're not available or they're not a good fit or whatever. Talk us through the next
Mhm.
places that you go.
Yeah, and even when I go to that folder, typically I don't like that. I don't singularly do that step. Sometimes I might, but normally I do kind of multiple places and get a pool of people to choose from. So then the next place I go is our team. Uh, I love who I work with, and if they know anyone who they feel like they've worked with in the past, or we just hired one of our employees' sisters, like a sister, a friend, someone who they've worked with in the past. So our team is the next person, people to know, like we're hiring, this is what we're looking for. Um, and then piggybacking off of that is our network. And our team is just like a niche part of our
Totally.
network that we have. And then usually our team is reaching out to our network. So that's why I'm saying like our team's one aspect of it, but it's them reaching out to their network while I'm reaching out to my network. And for me, my network is pretty small. Usually I'll post to Instagram and then Accountants Lounge, our Facebook group. I love posting there because if other accountants are hiring, you've sent me people in the past. In fact,
Yeah.
we're potentially going to hire someone that you sent us, potentially hiring someone that worked with another accountant and Accountants Lounge mean, like I sent her a job offer today. Like I'm hoping to work with a girl who's worked with one of our accountants in Accountants Lounge in the past. So yeah, our network is the next place.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing about having that network, like in this example you're just talking about, is sometimes we interview someone that's so good and we just know that for some reason they're not a fit or we're not going to be able to give them what they need right now. And we want them
Hmm.
to go work for someone else who's equally amazing. So
Yeah.
it's so nice to be able to have those networks that you can share really awesome candidates with.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah,
Or like just their hours didn't line up or their
right.
schedule. And so I know before in Accountants Lounge, I've posted like, someone please hire this person. This is why I love them, but this is why it wouldn't work for us. Someone
Yeah.
please just scoop them up though. They're great.
Yeah, like they're amazing. I would take them if I could, but for some reason there's something that's holding it back.
Yeah.
I love this. We do the same thing in Pretty Penny whenever it comes time to hire is we're kind of sourcing what we already have available. We're kind of
Right.
seeing, putting the feelers out, letting everybody know we're hiring, kind of what's going on, going through the people that have reached out to us. We really want to start with our own network and kind of figure out if there's anyone out there that might be a good fit.
Yeah. And I will say one of the benefits to starting with your own network and the reason maybe we subconsciously start with our own network is the vibe and cultural fit. We surround ourselves with people, we hopefully surround ourselves with people who match us culturally.
Yeah.
And so if we can if we already have that part matched, cool, just technicalities of this is the job that I'm hiring for, who can do these tasks. Because now the next place that you and I will talk about is job boards, because that's where we're
Let's,
going after the network, right?
yeah.
And job boards can be so intimidating for some people when they're thinking like, I need to hire and I'm posting to a job board. And hello, now you're talking to a whole bunch of strangers. And that's the
Mhm.
intimidating part is just strangers.
Yeah.
How am I vetting these people correctly? Because now you have to vet on vibes, cultural, and the technical work.
Yeah. I sometimes when I think of job boards, I think of like dating apps. Okay. I met my husband on Bumble, which is a dating app. And I think when you're dating on dating apps, if you don't happen to know the person that you come across, you have no way to really, it's hard to validate like, are they a real human? Are they someone who like is a nice person? You only are knowing what they're sharing with you. So I think it can
Yeah.
feel very intimidating. My husband ended up going to high school with my college roommates. So I was able to be like, hey, is this person legit? Like, tell me what you know. But I think a job board is kind of similar. Like, you're kind of jumping into a pool of people you don't know. And Don and I will dive a little bit deeper into job postings and interview questions, but you do have to sort of turn up the volume on getting to know that person since you don't have the validation of someone being like, hey, this is my sister. I can vouch for her.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have a whole episode that dives into that, I'm sure. Job boards. What job boards do you like and use, Ashley?
I've had a lot of success on LinkedIn. We've tried different ones, but all of my hires that have come from a job board have come from LinkedIn. It's just where we found success. I feel like I've kind of figured out the system. So whenever we go in to do a hire, it feels a little bit more routine rather than trying to jump over to different job boards. So LinkedIn has worked really well for us. What about you?
We use Indeed. We've hired one person off LinkedIn, but that was when we were using a recruiter who knows LinkedIn because I was intimidated by LinkedIn. I feel like it's a lot of SEO. Like you've got to get that part down, which you have that part down. So of course you're doing it right. Whereas Indeed, you really have to nail down that job description to stand out from other job descriptions.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've nailed that part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think this goes to show that there are so many different job boards out there and they're great for a reason, right? Because different ones are going to work well for different people. If you have never used a job board before, you might play around with a few and just see which one you feel like is the most comfortable. Or if you decide to start with one and it feels clunky, like you're really struggling with it, just know you don't have to use that one. You can go find another one and see if you can kind of find your groove in a different job board because they all have their own sort of pros and cons.
yeah, they totally do.
Yeah. Okay, so on that note of pros and cons, I want to dive a little bit into the pros and cons of different places that we're sourcing these hires. And I feel like where I want to start is the network and kind of people
Mhm.
or people that might know someone that knows someone that or someone that has seen you on social media, just kind of in the network. Let's talk about the pros and cons of finding someone that way. So we talked a little bit about the pros of they're probably going to be a good culture fit. And I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of time if someone's like, "Hey, you should go work for Don's company," it's because they know your company, they know this person, they feel like they would also be a good culture fit.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest pros is like what you said about Justin. Like you can vouch for someone, they're a real person. It's not just this face that they're putting on. Like, oh
Yep.
yeah, they are what they say. Yeah.
Yes, yes, like, you feel like you kinda just get to check that box and feel a little bit better about knowing them.
Yeah, it's not just an interview persona. They're
Yeah.
that.
I feel like another
Um,
pro is it can sometimes, if you are opening things up at the right time, it can sometimes be easier to find that person because sometimes on a job board, you're weeding through a lot of people or a lot of applicants, especially depending on how good you get at narrowing down your job description and the qualifications, which we can dive into later. But um, if someone just sort of lays someone in your lap that you feel like they have a good resume, they're going to be a good fit, the process of hiring them can sometimes be a little bit, or the process of just finding a hire, if you start there, can sometimes be easier because you're weeding through less applicants.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, people coming from my own network, like the people I knew, not was I knew them through someone, but the people I knew firsthand already who hired on, my easiest onboardings
Yeah.
ever. It was just so smooth because I'm like, I know how you work, I know how you operate. We're friends already. And we could talk about things that are like taboo to talk about or people don't talk about. Like, let's talk about family, finances. You
Yeah.
having babies anytime soon? Like, what
Yeah.
schedule are you wanting? What's going on with your spouse and his job? Because I know that last time we talked, he was ready to quit. Like, where are we at with all of these things? And it was so easy to have those conversations. And then onboarding process, I've onboarded people who I've worked with in the past. And so I took, I mean, our processes with my last firm to this firm, a lot of them are pretty similar. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, you already know all these processes.
It's gonna
Welcome to
look
the
really
team.
familiar. Yeah.
So some of that can be really nice and smooth. But on that same note, let's talk cons.
Let's talk the cons because there are definitely it's not all an upside hiring from your network and from people you know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Big con is back to that note of like you're hiring people who you've worked with in the past or you already know. There can be a lot of assumptions that either you make or the other person makes. And a con is just being blind to those assumptions of
Yeah.
like, oh, you know how to do the work. Okay, come on board. This will be so easy. Where maybe they were doing it a different way, or maybe you've changed the processes, or maybe they hated those processes
Yeah.
and you just never knew, or just assuming that things are going to function the same here as they did 5 years ago, your other place when people change, things change. So assumptions is a big one.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think if they are a friend of yours or someone that you worked side by side before, it might be different them coming in and you managing them, right? That's a
yeah,
different type of relationship having to manage someone that you're friends with or that you didn't previously have that type of a relationship with. And so I think it's important to get super clear with your expectations from the beginning so that there's no weird moments, right? Because there's going to be
yeah,
times when you need to give feedback. There's going to be times when a mistake is made or something needs to be corrected. And that is a very normal process of managing anyone on your team. And you don't want to feel like you can't say something to someone because you're afraid of how they're going to feel because you haven't really had that relationship in the past.
right. Because you only have that friend relationship established or
Right.
that coworker relationship established.
Right.
And so expectations and the setting boundaries and that, yeah, just that flow of like, okay, but I am your boss now. So
Right.
Don't call me your boss because that's weird, but I am your boss.
Exactly. And you can still be friends with that person on your team. Like that friendship doesn't have to go away, or that bond you had as coworkers before, whatever the relationship is, that doesn't have to go away. It's just knowing that in certain conversations, there is a mutual respect that, hey, I'm going to step into your manager role and I need you to like accept this feedback. And
Yep.
then we can move on from there.
Yeah. And something that's kind of a pro and a con at the same time on this subject is your friends or previous coworkers or those things that people that you know firsthand, they are going to speak their mind probably more so
Yes.
than strangers you're hiring off the internet. They feel um more safe, which is where you want all of your
Yeah.
people to feel safe. You want them to have a voice, and they know that they have a voice with you in your relationship. That's why you're friends. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes them voicing that thing can come across as like, wait, you're not my business partner though. Like we need to draw this line.
But it's
So,
because they're your friend and they want the best for your
mhm,
business. So they want to let you know if they feel like something is wonky that you're not seeing,
yep.
which as a business owner, I appreciate so much. I want to know. And it's nice to have someone that's like, hey, I'll be the one to tell you this is going on.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's a pro and a con. It is a pro because that's exactly what you want. It's just a con because you have to set that
Yeah.
expectation and draw that line sometimes of,
Yes.
and I've had that conversation with, I can think of one of my employees in particular where she and I had a conversation and it came from her mouth and she's like, look, I'm really not looking to be your business or to be your business partner. I already have a partnership with my husband and that partnership is hard enough. I don't need another. But here are the things that I have to say and voice. And I'm like, ah, I'm glad you saw that because I was starting to feel pressure of like, are we business partners now? Like, why are you telling me all these things? So it was really nice to have that expectations chat and for to hear it from her of, yes, I am your boss. Okay, glad we got that established.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's like this mutual trust factor where they know that you want the best for them
Yes.
because you have that relationship outside of just the, you know, owner of the company, employee of the company, whatever. And then also you have a you trust them to know they want the best for your business. And I think
Mhm.
when we're talking about this, it is important to note that you do still have to be careful with who you bring on because you want to make sure that they are a friend or a network acquaintance that does want the best for your business and that you do want the best for them because maybe we can slide this over into the cons, but I think it can be I just think you want to make sure that you're bringing people on with the best intentions.
Yeah.
We never expect for someone to not have the best intentions or to come in and just kind of want something cush and maybe take advantage of what you're offering. But I think it can happen if you're not careful through that acquaintance process.
Right. And on that same note, I think that's hmm, a, a really big con that we haven't said yet. When we're advertising a job opportunity with our network, or when your team members are advertising a job opportunity with their network, anytime we're sharing something with like friends and family, that can get taken advantage of real quick. And you get people sliding into your DMs like, ooh, hire me. Cause that cush job of remote work from home position, like, hey, I've been looking for a work from home job, hire me. And it's this person who you knew from high school or a friend of a friend or something. And it's like, I love that you noticed it was a remote position because it is. Do you have any of the other qualifications I was asking about though, or are you
Yeah.
just seeing that aspect of it?
Yeah.
And so, uh, job boards, you get a lot of spam that way. Friends and family,
Yeah.
in my opinion, you get just as much spam. And
Yeah.
it's not intentional spam, it's not actual spammers, but it's these people who see one side of it or one aspect of it. And a lot of times I give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm like, I don't think you realize that like this is a legit accounting firm or legit accounting business. It's not just a fun work from home hobby that I'm trying to hire for. So love that you want to work for me. I'd love to work with you, but also you're not qualified. So like, no. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you said it well too. It's not that I think these people have like ill will towards you or your business. They're not wanting to come in and sabotage it. They're just thinking, I would love to work with my friend or this person that I
Mhm.
know. I need a job. I want a remote job. They're offering a remote job. Sign me up. Rather than
Yeah,
really thinking through, like, this is a role I'm interested in. I am qualified for it. I want to learn more in this space. Hire me. So
absolutely.
I do agree that it's not that you're just getting that on the job boards with the remote work and people just wanting to pounce on it. It also comes from that network too.
It does, it does. And I mean, on that note, it's one of the easiest positions to hire for. Or maybe it's the hardest because it's the easiest, is an admin position. Because if you're hiring a remote work from home admin position, this is where you get every single person apply. Because it's like
Um,
work from home admin, I can learn
I can do
that.
that. Yeah.
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 And yeah, that's half of my hiring inboxes. Hey, next time we have an admin position open up, I'll keep your resume on file, but why'd you apply for a bookkeeping position? You don't do bookkeeping or tax. You
Yeah.
don't do tax or something
Yeah.
like that. So, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a process. And I think just being aware of those pros and cons. There's another con that we haven't touched on yet, and that is if you have a social media presence in any form, it doesn't have to be a big one, can be a small, big, whatever, it doesn't matter. But if you decide to post on your social media that you are hiring for a position, in my experience, we get a lot of people interested that have their own bookkeeping company and want to come and help us with our business as well. And
Yes.
I don't want to completely shy people away from these types of hires because there are firms who do that and it works really well for them. They're able
Yeah.
to set really good boundaries, have really good expectations between those hires, but it is a boundary that we've set that we don't hire anybody that has their own bookkeeping business to come, because I want them, at least when it comes to bookkeeping in this part of their work, to be fully dedicated to Pretty Penny. So that's a boundary we've set. And I found that whenever I post on our socials that we're hiring, that is the bulk. I won't say all because we still do get some good interest come through, but I will say it's probably the bulk of the interest that we get is from people who have their own bookkeeping companies. And then it's just me having conversations with those people of like, that's a boundary we have. That's we don't hire anyone that has their own business. So just something to keep in mind if you're going to post on socials.
Yeah. That's a good point. And again, this panel is all about, or like these discussions are all about what works for Ashley and I's firm.
Yeah,
We really encourage you to do your own thing, walk your own path, whatever works for you, do that. This is us
absolutely.
giving you permission because look how different we do things from a typical accounting firm and from our backgrounds. We've really thought like outside of the box and we do things different. Um, but I will say our firm has that same boundary. Um, just because of past experiences and learning people's priorities when they have their own and working for you and just different things that happen. So we have that same boundary and it does happen a lot where we post an opportunity and people apply and the minute I see that they have their own business, I'm like, do you have more than like one client? Yep. Okay. I'm not that interested then.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. And I think I'll just say really quick, I feel like we could probably stick on this subject for a while. So maybe we need to record another episode and really dive in. But I do feel like Dawn said it really well when she said the word priorities, because in my experience, when someone has their own bookkeeping business, even if they currently have capacity, their number one priority is going to be to grow their own book of business as it should be.
Right.
And your work in their role, although they may not ever intend for this to happen, is going to move to the bottom of their list, in my experience. So again, there are plenty of people who do this and have found a way to set those boundaries and expectations really well. It is possible. But that's just my experience with something's got to fall when priorities are put in line and when work gets busy. And in my
Yeah.
experience, that was our work.
Yeah. Same. Same. We just, when we're hiring, we're looking for people who are all in on our business. And when someone has their own firm, they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And that is just fine. They'd still at least have 1 foot in and get some work done. So for some people
Right.
that will work. For us, we really are looking for the full team collaboration, which means all in
We
here.
want you all in.
Yeah.
Same. Okay, let's
Um,
touch on. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna move on too, because I'm like, hey, we're talking a lot of pros and cons about like our network area. I want to touch on the pros and cons of the job board real quick, because I know that can be a really intimidating thing. Um, you and I have both had a lot of success on there.
Yep.
I've also had a lot of failures on there, but it's another episode for another day. Some real fun stories to make anyone feel better about some hires that they've had that haven't worked out. The obvious con of going to a job board, you're hiring strangers. You're hiring
Yeah.
people who you don't really know, which means there's going to be a lot more filtering and discussions that have to come out of this. And I think when it comes to job boards, the hardest thing has been it's a lot on you. It's about how you write the job description, how you're holding the interviews, your interview process. What are you testing on beforehand? How are you setting up those expectations? What are you even writing in your job offer to set expectations? And then the onboarding process onto your team. But if you can nail all those things down,
Yeah.
job boards are a gold mine. That's where the people are. And so there, it's like the place with the biggest potential, also the biggest risks at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it all comes down to really nailing your job posting, nailing the qualifications that the job board will let you put in, and then nailing your interview process. Because I think, to your point, it can be a huge pro to go to a job board, especially if you own a virtual firm.
Yeah.
You have the ability to hire people anywhere that you want, right? And so going to a job board really opens up the possibility of who you can bring on. Because if you're sticking with your network, it might be local, it might be limited to the circles that you are in, those networking circles that you are in. And so you're not even seeing people outside of those circles who could be a really incredible hire and a perfect fit for your business if you don't go to a job board. So again, pros and cons of doing all of these, and you can always test out some and test out others. But I think a job board can be super beneficial. It just is a big pond,
Hmm.
um, and you've really got to filter through.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you going to say before I
The
kind of
same thing.
interrupted? Oh,
I was gonna
hey.
pivot us to the job boards because I do feel like we were diving in a lot to the network, which was great, but there's just so many pros and cons of going the job board
Oh,
route.
boy.
And
Yeah.
I think it really just takes practice. You know, Dawn and
Yes.
I, our goal with doing these conversations is to teach you guys what we have learned to hopefully get you a little bit ahead of the game from where we feel like we started when we jumped into hiring, because we did a lot of trial and error. Um, but the truth is that you will still have to do your own trial and error whenever you jump into hiring. Trial with what that whole process looks like for you so that you can really narrow it down quicker. Hiring,
Yeah.
especially if you go the job board route, can just take time. Like you just got to block off the time on your schedule to create it, customize it, filter the candidates, schedule the interviews, all the things.
Yeah. Kate, if you're still listening to this, if you've gotten this far in this video and you're still listening, go comment below if there's anything that you want us to dive into deeper. Because I feel like there were a million things where Ashley and I were like, oh, we could do that, or we could do that, or that's another episode for another day. So if there's a specific question you have about like um hiring with prospects or your team or your network or job boards or different pros and cons that we've mentioned or experiences we've had, comment below about what you want to see, because that's how we know like, oh, we should chat about that more. So yeah, there's my request.
Love that. Please, please go do that. I know in one of our next episodes is going to be our hiring process. So Dawn and I are going to literally lay out from start to finish how we go through hiring someone, what those interviews look like. So in the meantime, Dawn, do you have anything else to contribute to this conversation on where to find good hires?
Good luck.
All right, you guys, thanks for joining us on another episode of Accountants Lounge, where we take you behind the scenes of our growing firms. If you want to join in on the convo, please join our free Facebook group. It's wonderful. There's great networking going on in there. You might even find your next hire from the Facebook group. So go ahead and jump in. Make sure you like and subscribe for more episodes, and we'll see you next time.